Hi. Thanks for having us, and thanks for waking up so early to be here. So I'm going to talk about the sound of variable fonts, and so Lizzie asked me to kind of come in and just be the opener, have a little fun, and so I thought I would start with a picture of me with a mustache, and I also happen to be wearing the same shirt. But I guess what I'm really wanting to focus on is that mess in the background of wires, which is my synthesizer. And so a few years ago, I got really deep into modular synthesizers, synthesis, sound design, a little bit of music, but mostly just me making weird noises that nobody wants to hear. And this is another picture of it, but also with our neighbor's cat, Cheeto. And he just kind of shows up at our door every day and sleeps on our bed all day. It's kind of like the best situation because we don't have to clean the litter. He just is there for us to he's our friend. Okay, so there is a real talk here. And so synthesizers, music is not what I make a living on. It's just my passion that I spend all of my free time on. And so what I spend most of my time on is in the type world, in type design, designing typefaces for our Foundry Vectro, and we take on client work as well. And then also we run future fonts where we help other people release type. And so this talk is going to try to explore that middle ground if it's possible for these two worlds to meet. And it kind of seeps in a little bit on in the background. And so just like this is just kind of like anytime I get an opportunity, I just try to like put my music into it, especially when I have a captive audience. Like this event, Hyper Talks, where we do every year, where I just do a little synthesizer intro. But that's not quite what I want to talk about today, because this is kind of setting the tone for the event. So I want to pose another question instead. What sound does a font make? And if we want to be silly about it, maybe it's the sound of your mouse clicking as you select the font from the menu, or maybe the tap, tap, tap of the keys as you're typing in the font. Maybe it's the hum of your computer or fan overloading with a Photoshop file. But it kind of begs the question, can a font even make a sound at all? Because it's just software, and you can't literally embed a sound into a font. But does that mean it doesn't make a sound at all? So perhaps another way of looking at it is, can a font imply sound? Can fonts or letter forms make us imagine sounds? And I'm not talking about the sound of the words being spoken out loud, but perhaps a typeface reminds you of a certain kind of music or a song, or maybe it's more abstract, like a car zooming by or a gentle breeze or a dial-up modem. And I think what I'm getting at here is that each typeface has its own personality. They can create a sense of emotion or feelings that's kind of added on top of an extra layer on top of the type that it's setting that can contrast with it, or it can enhance the message. And some personalities of typefaces are joyful, somber, sophisticated, playful, weird. And in a room full of designers and creatives, this probably isn't new information. But I guess when you're designing a typeface, it's really important to understand the personality and kind of create that personality as you're designing it. And for me, music and sound are really useful tools in kind of defining that personality. And for each one of our typefaces, I usually create a playlist to go along with it, which I listen to, and it gets me in the mood while I'm working on it. But I really find that the act of creating that playlist really is useful for me to define the personality of the typeface. Like, is it more Devo and B-52s, or is it more like Portishead or Bjork? And I find it really, while I do find visual mood boards really helpful, I think the idea of music, for me, cuts a little bit closer to the emotion and the feelings because there's a layer of abstraction where I'm not looking at something, I'm just feeling it. And so I want to quickly take a side note on variable fonts, which is, if you're not familiar with it, it's a relatively new font technology which allows the user to customize the look of the typeface. And the most common use for it is to add like a weight or a width axis. But I think I'm also really interested in the variable fonts that kind of explore the wilder and experimental side. And when you're kind of looking at them, for me, it kind of adds another dimension to the work. It adds a layer of movement and time. And it also kind of feels like they're dancing a little bit. And GrillyType recently posted this, and it reads, when you hit the animate button in a variable font type tester. I also kind of feel like this while I'm working on the typeface. But I will never be able to move like that. So when we first started working on our own variable fonts, it was obvious that they needed to be animated. And so we did that, but it kind of felt like something was missing. And so given that this is the video format, the idea came to us that maybe we can just start to add sound. And so just started adding some really subtle, more soundscapes, and kind of just like make you feel like something weird is happening here. Or maybe you're kind of floating over an alien landscape, cityscape. And then also kind of moving into kind of thinking about it, this is an experiment, having the typeface react to the sound rather than adding the sound after the fact. And so here it's reacting to the volume and the frequency of the synthesizer. It kind of says its own name there. This is kind of fun. The name of the font is Woe. And so last year we released this variable font, Kablamo, which is on Google Fonts, and we had Fisk design the artwork for it, but they brought us back static images. And from the very beginning, we had, it was kind of designed to animate and move. And as we started to animate it, we kind of realized and started talking about it like it's the dancing font. And so, of course, I added a silly little song to go with it. And each one of these got its own, was an excuse for me to make some silly little song. Oh, and here's, yeah, here's Cheeto asking to be let in, staring in our bathroom window. He's such a creep. So I want to go back to that original question, what sound does a font make? Because those previous explorations were more marketing driven, more answering the question of what is the personality of that typeface. But I kind of wanted to answer the question of what does it actually sound like when that variable font is moving? And so here's what I imagine Poof by Linda Hintz to sound like. And here is Rotor by Jan Schindler. And I also just want to point out that these are all still just variable fonts. I'm not doing anything fancy with editing or effects or anything. It's just embedded, or I'm just animating the value of the variable font axis. And this one in particular, TypeArcher, or Gimme by TypeArcher, this is a color font that's also variable. So like all these colors are embedded directly in it. and, and that annoying sound was actually a sample of our cat Logic. It was her greeting. Every time you would walk into the room, she would make this sound. And that sound does not do her justice, because she was very beautiful, and I mangled her sound to make that annoying gear sound. And here's her sister, Sadie, both of them waiting to be let in. And I didn't want to leave Sadie out. Going back to the fonts, here is Dance by Katya, or not Dance, Tweak by Katya Schimmel. And for this one, I was going to make like a techno rave song, but I kind of imagined somebody alone in the room with headphones on and just dancing by themselves, and all you could hear is their squeaky knees. Oops. And here's Chi by Oh No. And so you might be asking, what's the point of all of this? It's just play, and like, there's no why. For me, I like to say, or I like to think of it as play is not just play. For me, play is a really fundamental part of my design practice. And I got into this line of work because it was fun, and it's important that I find ways to continue to make it fun. And I think there's kind of like a negative connotation with the word play, and that it's just for kids. But I think that maybe if we reframe it as play is curiosity, and play is learning, and play is growing, and play is self-care. Because at the end of the day, for me, what I'm doing here is just kind of, I'm learning something new, I'm following my interests and my passions, and I'm growing as a person, and I'm growing as a designer. Like, those things ultimately end up coming back into my work, even if I don't want them to. And so I think that it's really important to help avoid getting burnt out, and just like having an avenue or a place to work on something that you're excited about that is separate from the capitalist grind. And I think that it's also okay to not know why you're doing it, or what it is that you're doing, and to just kind of like follow what you're truly interested in, and then figure it out later. And maybe you don't figure it out, and it's just, therapy. You're just like, it's your way to like, just have something to, just like, you're just learning and just staying curious. And I think that's really important as a designer. And I think at the end of the day, even all these things that I'm exploring that I don't want to come back, or I don't think they're going to come back, I think that ultimately innovation comes from the merging of very different, or not so different, but just different perspectives. And I think there's that saying, a jack of all trades is a master of none, and that's always kind of really annoyed me. Like, I remember getting that feedback in a design interview when I was younger, trying to tell me to just focus on one thing. And I think that specializing in one thing is great, and like becoming the best at it is great. But for me, I think there's also a lot of value in just being the person who's finding opportunities and connecting things. And yeah, and I think that a lot of, looking at our own work, a lot of our best successes are kind of illustrations of this exact point, where with Chartwell, bringing in our experience in type design. And in type design itself, originally started out as play for me, just kind of exploring something that I was interested in and had no idea whether it was actually going to come back into my work. And now type design is like all my entire job. And so Chartwell is kind of this mix of type design and coding, and trying to design annual reports in InDesign, and the client changing the chart every day, or the data. This opportunity to create a typeface that allowed you to make charts wouldn't have existed if I didn't have this perspective of seeing this opportunity. And similarly with Chartwell, again, bringing our type design background and our graphic design background, and seeing the frustrations with that process. And then also designing websites and like seeing how websites and software are versioned and released in beta versions, and our client work in helping build communities. And the websites like gave us the tools to actually visualize and execute these opportunities that we were seeing. And so I guess if really have to summarize this all into one thing, just play more, explore more, and be curious. And I will leave you with a photo of my childhood cat, Zizix, who was really peeing on the toilet. He would only pee in the toilet, and he taught himself. Yeah, and so I will leave it to Lizy.
Great job, babe. Okay, we're going to switch gears a little bit. My section of this talk is called Alphabet Soup. I'm Lizy Gershenzon. And again, I just want to say thank you for the Creative Mornings team, Caitlin, the Lauras I met, Samit, Christopher, the rest of everyone. And thanks for everyone that showed up so early and signed up. Really appreciate you being here. Makes me very nervous. Okay, I love soup. I love soup because it's healthy, it's practical, it's nurturing, it's great for meal planning, it gets better with time, it's great when you're sick, it's helpful to bring friends and family when they need a little help. And my love for soup started at a really young age. We referred to my grandma as Meals on Wheels because she would make this huge pot of soup and then drive it to all of her 7 kids and all of their grandkids. My mom's one of 7, I'm one of 4, and it was how we all survived. Like, that was the first meal I ever ate, was my great-grandmother mushing up the carrots and putting it in our mouth. And yeah, it was how this huge family worked. So a little background, let's back up. Travis and I met in Chicago almost 20 years ago. Soon after we met, we spent 2 years in New Zealand, and then we moved to Portland, Oregon. We were seeking a place that fit us, that felt like home. Access to nature was, I guess, important. We liked adventure and a future for our creative careers and energy. We moved to Portland sight unseen, bought a used car, packed up our 2 cats, Sadie and Logic, and drove cross country because Portland, we felt, had a really interesting creative energy, we thought, and it was close to nature. It reminded us of New Zealand. When we moved to Portland, I quickly became really involved in the community because I wanted to meet people. I co-founded a group called We Make PDX with Yvonne Perez Emerson. It was a great way to cold email, call, get in touch with people I thought were doing cool stuff, and also be beneficial to them. It gave me, and it was also a way to showcase our work as well and grow our talents. So got really involved. Also, when we moved here, we launched Chartwell. Travis, it was a project Travis started tinkering with because he got interested in type in New Zealand because there was a design conference. Clem is there. It was in the environment there. And when we got here, it was finished and we launched it, and it got a lot of buzz. It was the heyday of Twitter, got retweets, and introduced us to the type industry and community and got our work out there. So we were also trying to figure out what kind of client. We had started our studio Scribbletone in New Zealand because no one was hiring junior designers and we needed a name. And then when we moved to Portland, we were figuring out who our clients were. And we really liked working with creative communities because they let us make cool stuff and pushed us further and challenged us and made the work better. It wasn't us trying to argue or satisfy some business, there were business priorities, but they were interested in just designing really cool things. So we worked with Sealy Pines and Eric Hillerns, brought us on to design the initial brand and website for Design Portland, which over the years blew up into this really complex platform, event organizing community platform, as well as a really unbelievably huge event too. Year after year, it kept getting bigger. Then with that work, brought the attention of Andy McMillan and Annie Bayo of XOXO Fest, which again, super ambitious, community-driven, generous, community nurturing initiative, and it kept getting bigger and better every year. Also with that, we started working with Marmoset Music, which is music licensing, and one of their partners started a filmmaking licensing platform called Story and Heart. This introduced us to filmmaking and creative IP, which was another form of creative communities with this licensing model, which was interesting. And again, each project pushed our design capabilities, our development capabilities, when we were doing not just static sites anymore. We were building whole businesses online. And we got a front row to how to grow and build design communities, both from the business side of it and from the marketing side of it, and really beautiful design communities. It also allowed us to connect with a community and more people that we really loved. And this was a time when there was it was a really active creative community here. I like to think, I was looking through all these yesterday, and I was like, it was like the 1970s New York, Patti Smith artistic movement. And it was just really fun. And everyone was involved and everyone was participating. I hope it feels like it's bubbling up again. And it was really valuable because we were all scrappy and we had just moved here and we needed to make money, and so we were trying to find clients and showcase our work. So I was getting a masterclass in building and growing supportive creative communities. We became close with creative design leaders like Kate Bingham and Burt, Celie Pines, Eric Hillerns, Andy McMillan, Andy Bayo, Yvonne Perez Emerson, Adam Garcia, Rachel Coddington, Elsa Lang, and so many more. It was really fun to be a part of it. Another thing we realized with Design Week was the power of an unfinished typeface. For Design Week, we made a word mark that turned into a typeface because everything turned into a typeface. And so this one, we took inspiration with the letter forms from Portland's neon signage and kind of an atmosphere of like Nike sports, yay. Sports camaraderie. It also served as a really efficient brand asset because it united hundreds of indie events and studios without making a ton of additional artwork. And it was even useful at a really simple character set of A through Z and numbers. And even though this typeface was unfinished and wouldn't be technically released for another 7 years because there was this high barrier for release at that point, it was useful for brand, as a tool, and as a system. And that's some of the beauty of what a font can do. It's kind of a hybrid of technology and art form. So back to Soup. Behind the scenes was less glamorous. We were stressed. There were a lot of big ideas, time constraints, little budgets. We were young, ambitious, and gave these projects a lot of ourselves. Without more budget and resources, it felt unsustainable for everyone. We needed to take care of ourselves. We had some health and life issues that came up that needed our attention. We no longer had the desire and privilege to sacrifice in the same way. I needed something else. Also, fortuitously, Chartwell had a very successful royalty year. So we decided to take a risk, close Scribbletone, and focus on our own work. We took our first vacation without laptops in 10 years and went to Japan for 2 weeks. I still remember this soup. I was looking through soup pictures, and I loved this soup in Japan. It was like the perfect balance. It was hearty. It was a beautiful soup too. We also took Chartwell, take risks, iterate, be kind to yourself, and grow. We took Chartwell and the success that year as a sign to invest in our own ideas and ourselves. We had built up all of these skills and knowledges to create these powerful businesses and platforms for other people, and we had a lot of ideas. So we started designing and launching products. Notch was the first one we made. It was a social app for games, but we soon realized we didn't really have a business model for this. We didn't want to sell ads. We weren't excited about selling data. My brother suggested like a gambling app, which probably would have been very lucrative, but again, not super excited about it. Next, we launched Exif with our talented friend Jared Bishop, who we met in New Zealand. I had contacted him through Twitter. This app was for photographers to protect their images online. It had a business model, but we weren't photographers and we weren't connected to the community or industry in any substantial way. Side note, we made a typeface for this project. For our apps and platforms and whatever, we don't really like relying on plugins because you don't have complete control. You need to update. I mean, we do now because you kind of have to, but it gets annoying. And typefaces aren't much different because it's similar with fonts. We wanted more control of both the design of the font. We took inspiration from retro cameras and how the font was used. So we designed and built, like we wanted more power and control over who could use it. So we designed and built, at that time it was called ISO, now it's Vectro Mono. And we still, we sell it today. While this was all happening, I started contracting to help supplement our income. I learned a lot during this time, and it gave me new perspectives outside of running our own studio. I learned more about presentation and polish, how to sell work through a larger organization. I met a lot of really talented people, and how nice it is to have the greater support of resources and benefits. It was nice focusing on one part of a project instead of trying to do everything. And the relationships I had built and nurtured earlier in my career really helped with these transitions. Because of these relationships, in addition to all of our hard work, I was able to secure really great contracts at amazing teams and on amazing teams and projects at Instrument. Then people I worked with there went on to work at other places and again helped me land contracts at places like Headspace and GitHub. All this to say is that the seeds you plant early in your career are valuable. A lot of those people grow too with you. During this time, I was exploring and learning what working for someone else would be like. Oh, do I have that? So while I was contracting, we were also working on future fonts. Future fonts have filled a lot of what I was missing with the foundations of our other products. It was a good fit for us. We had a good idea. We were part of the community. We understood the type industry and had friends in the type design community. And this one had a business model. Also, this project seemed like a good extension of what we had learned from our previous work and community building. So we buckled down and focused on it. Travis mentioned this a little bit. Pay attention to that squeaky wheel. This project came about because we were listening and paying attention to the squeaky wheel, also known as frustration points and opportunities. We were building on things we learned from community, client jobs, and past products, and how we would have maybe done things differently or our own way. We realized it's scary being an independent designer and doing it all on your own, and being a type designer is no different. There is a lot to do and learn. It feels overwhelming and lonely, and you make a lot of mistakes. It usually doesn't pay enough, and it is hard not to beat yourself up over every little thing. Creative symbiosis. There's a creative symbiosis with fonts, fonts made by designers and used by them. We love working with creatives because the work can be more daring. You can be more vulnerable. You can learn from one another, and you can work together. And fonts have that creative symbiosis, which is kind of cool. Another squeaky wheel, specifically in the type industry, and creative industries in general, actually, is distribution platforms have an enormous influence over the creative culture. Big Type owns most of font IP and customer relationships. Many type designers are frustrated, upset, and don't trust them anymore, and for good reason. And we understood that from firsthand with our personal frustrations with Chartwell and how it was sold with Font Shop and bought by Monotype, and there's a whole story there and a whole talk. But and customers have their own stories about being taken advantage of or not liking the relationship. In addition, historically, and still today, type has been developed from a very narrow viewpoint, leaving out women, native speakers, and many other relevant and valuable backgrounds that represent broader cultures and community. So that's where we started with Future Fonts. We had a good idea. We challenged this notion of what does finished even mean? Travis was actually just going to build it on our website because he wanted to release Kicker and some other things that were in our unfinished folder. And we realized that unfinished typefaces were useful. We also released software in versions, so why were fonts different? Why were we still releasing them like they were cast in metal? So we started questioning it. So we did what we knew how to do, and we started dreaming, designing, planning, and building an overly ambitious project. We built a creative community platform for unfinished typefaces. It had a whole back-end system, so designers could upload their fonts, were in charge of all the marketing, pricing, licensing, and more. They could release fonts in progress and communicate what stage the project was in, similar to GitHub. And designers buying the fonts get a front row seat into the process. They're able to give feedback on what they wanted next. They can also buy and support a typeface early with free updates as it grows. It's basically an incubator for fonts and foundries. Also, friends make it better. We reached out to all of our friends and we're asking them, what do you think of this idea? How would you do this? Do you have unfinished fonts? We find friends' feedback and their ideas always make it better. And if we're lucky, they want to help us and actually collaborate with us in a big way. And that's what happened with James Edmondson from Ono Type. He thought it was a good idea and wanted to help. He got a glimpse, during this whole process, he got a glimpse into our dedication and chaos between me and Travis working. He wisely convinced us to curate the catalog. We were going to open it up for everyone, and reached out to his type friends, these really talented people that he had met through school, which became the initial group of talented foundries we launched with. He also designed our logo and some of our initial brand assets. In addition, he also has a bigger following than us, which helped a lot. He made Future Fonts better. And we help it grow. It's important to maintain a growth mindset throughout all of this when you're making it your own products. Nothing is going to be perfect from the start, and it's going to evolve in its own ways. You have to continue to help it grow. Improve on core systems, clarify your vision and values, keep iterating, find opportunities for collaboration, serve your community in new ways, bring value to larger communities, get good feedback along the way, take care of yourself, rinse and repeat. So today, Future Fonts is a community font marketplace collectively impacting our culture and shaping our future. We have over 260 fonts, over 110 foundries from 25 different countries. Our fonts are selected by a quarterly review panel of people on Future Fonts for their distinct designs, high drawing quality, experimentation either in the letter forms or in the technology, their unique perspective in our catalog, and if they bring a unique perspective to our catalog. And they must be first releases and not released anywhere else. So distinct designs. Just a lot of, I'm going to show some more fonts, well-designed type. From native speakers, experimental fonts, and first-to-market releases. And that's just a sample. There's some amazing fonts on there. Designed by a global network of type designers and foundries representing the future of type. These are dedicated type designers and foundries from all over the world. Some are independent, some work in-house, some contract, some are teachers, some are artists, some are doing this part-time, some are doing this full-time. And we get to go travel and meet some of them when we're lucky. And they're loved by leading brands, agencies, and independent creatives alike. We also, in the last couple of years, started providing custom type design services with our deep roster, leaning on our deep roster of talent. This one we collaborated with our friend Daria and Ethan Cohn. Nurturing a creative community centered around contemporary fonts and design. So that brings us back to the community. We've learned from legends on how to throw parties and build community. And we want to honor what they've taught us. And of course, put our own spin on it. We try to make people feel welcome, to build a safe space for connection and encouragement. And of course, throw fun parties and educational events that encourage people to connect, learn, and champion great work. We lean on friends and try to make it beneficial for them too. Community is a give and take and a balancing act. Again, it is about looking for opportunities to champion one another. Our goal is to all rise together. So here are some fun projects we've done with people and some parties. This was another fun collaboration. Connection, party with Fisk. Party with outlet. Take the. I was supposed to speak over these, but I did it all at once. It's fun to look at them. Okay, a few more. I'll go quick. There's just too many. And I had way more. This is cut down. So final thoughts. I love soup. I love soup because it's healthy, practical, and good for me, my friends, and my family. Usually someone took a lot of time and care in making it. It is nurturing and represents love. In a lot of ways, Future Fonts has similar sentiments to me. It takes a long time to make, is a labor of love. There are different flavors from different backgrounds to try and admire. It also represents a hope of creative freedom for both us and the designers on the platform. It supports creativity, and it hopefully is shaping the future in positive ways. So some thoughts for you on your journey or career. Build your community. Don't be a jerk. It's way too small of a community out there. It'll come back. Collaborate often. Usually the new perspectives are really valuable. It's okay to make mistakes. It means you're learning and trying something new, and you're outside of your comfort zone. Risk leads to growth. If you have the privilege to take risks, it can break cycles. It can be a chance for you to learn quicker and grow. And everything is in progress is our motto. So how can you create things that are good for you and your community? And I'll just end on this slideshow. So thank you.